a lot of people ask about their student loan debt and how to manage that. That's a really tough question from a financial planning standpoint. And it's really sad. It's really unfortunate that so many people are caught with such huge crippling debt in this, well into the six figures, 100,000, 200,000 or more in debt, and with interest and over time, sometimes people end up owing 300,000. It's really tragic and it's a real shame. And I'm a big critic of it because as a financial advisor for years, I've seen people having issues with debt. Unfortunately, most of them are not even our customers because people are in so much debt that they can't even invest. And that's really a challenge. That's one reason I'm a big critic of the current system where the academic institutions and the government, frankly, have created this huge inflation into these, very worthless degrees in some cases. Certainly degrees that don't have an ROI, and it's undeniably a very very overpriced product, and it's being pushed to, generally young teenagers and their families, and so to me the ethics of it are no different than a sort of, in some cases, sort of a shady used car salesperson kind of thing. It's very unfortunate that a lot of these people are burdened by this, but you're not going to solve that through a financial plan. You can't undo the debt that you're in. You can't change policy. You can be aware more and be very cautious that the world is trying to get your money. Student loans are a multi-billion-dollar industry. The academic sort of scam, for lack of a better word. And I'm not saying academia is a scam. Academics is a great thing, but the current system that academics have pushed these very overpriced loans on teenagers and other young people is really just, terrible, terrible ethics, very reprehensible. Most of the professors and people working at universities probably have pretty good ethics, but the system that they're part of is just terrible because it's just outright robbing people, and it's crippling people with this, sometimes a lifetime of debt. And they sort of mislead the students. When the students come in, they either don't emphasize just how bad this is going to be. So the very painful and sad lesson a lot of people have to learn from that is that even those people who seem like they're on your side, even the tweed jacket wearing academic or the university provost or something who seems, even a doctor, a police officer, even somebody who seems very trustworthy, may not have your best interests at heart. And generally, the world is trying to take as much as they can from you. Even if you're a billionaire, the world's going to figure out a way to try and get as much as they can from you every step of the way, whether you're staying at a luxury hotel or whether you're trying to buy ramen noodles. So that's really unfortunate. What can you do about it? You can't go back in time and change it. You can just be much more aware and watch out and recognize, for one thing, don't trust the people that lied to you about your student loan, which is mainly academic and the government. The government has a huge part in it because they pushed the reason that the loans are so preposterously expensive is because the government has created all of this taxpayer subsidies where they're taking by threat of force money from taxpayers and giving it indirectly to the schools. So the schools just charge more and more and more, and the rates end up being much higher. So one thing to do is to have caution about dealing with these institutions that maybe lied to you, maybe certainly have lied to others or misled others, and be aware that that's kind of the way the world works. Everybody is out there trying to sell something. It's a little more obvious if it's Procter and Gamble trying to sell some toothpaste, and it's a little more subtle. Some of the sales pitches you really have to watch out for are the ones that don't seem like sales pitches. Most academics wouldn't want to associate themselves with used car salespeople or think of themselves as sales and marketing people, just like politicians don't like to think of themselves as marketing. But it really is. They're really trying to sell you on something. What you can do at this stage is, be aware in the future. Definitely watch out for these kind of scams in the future, and really cut your expenses back and do anything you can to get rid of that debt. In some cases, even declaring bankruptcy. Now the trick is the same government that burden people with these loans to make it very difficult to declare bankruptcy to get out of the loans. So it's really a really tough position. But debt is a wealth killer, and it will keep you down a long, long time, it makes it very difficult for you to have the flexibility that you need to do better, because you're kind of constantly worried about this never-ending debt that you have. So the biggest priority with debt is pay down all the debt you have. Start with the debt that's the highest interest. Luckily, student loans generally aren't that high of interest. If you have something like credit cards, get rid of those first. Anything with real high interest, get rid of those first. And then, as overall part of your investment plan, if you have an asset allocation, you're going to have to consider debt as part of the debit side of that, and continually have a plan to try and pay that down, and just grind away at it until it's gone, and then you're able to have more of a chance to build the financial future. I wish I had better news on this, but it is something you should be angry about. If you're in a situation where you have these astronomical student loans, you should be blaming those who sold you the scam. It's something that you should be angry about, and you should be thinking about that next time you hear some politician say something about free college or something like that. This is all caused by this whole system of sort of very, very bad economics that don't make sense, that have incentivized a system for shady academics to push these useless degrees on students. So I wish I had better news, but just churn away at eliminating that debt as much as you can, and then meanwhile, no matter how much debt you have, you still need to do some saving. So even if you have this overwhelming astronomical amount of debt, you got to save something, because the only way you'll get ahead, you got to knock that debt down, pay a little bit more if you can, and then save something, even if it's just a tiny amount, the smallest amount, even if it's just canceling your Netflix and taking the money from the Netflix. Those tips, by the way, aren't great tips. All these things, cut out a few coffees or something, that's not likely to move the needle, but it is better than nothing. And so anything that you can do on that is a good way to start. And then spread the word also for students and your own children when the time comes to really watch it. This student loan scam is not going to continue on to the time that the next generation, in 20 years, you're not going to have another equivalent increase in college costs. College costs used to be 1/10 of an average house, and now it's kind of like 4 years at a private school is similar to the cost of an average house. At that rate of inflation, you'd have 20 years from now, a house would cost $500,000 and college would cost $2.5 million or something. It's preposterous and ridiculous, and it's a total scam. And a lot of people want to blame somebody else. It's easy to blame the system or whatever, but the fact is that most people just made a really bad decision when they were 17, 18, 19 years old. They signed papers without thinking of it, and now they're going to be paying for that decision for the rest of their life. The fault is their own, and that's hard. It was sold to them by scammers. The scammers should be called out, that namely the academics and the government. But the fault is with making a bad decision. The best way to overcome that is not to blame somebody else or look for somebody else to fix it, or try and rob even more people to pay for the bad debt that people had for bad ROI sold by scammers. But they should work on educating others and trying to prevent that in the future. So that's a couple thoughts on debt.